for this opportunity to speak. I am Dr. Corinne Wickens. I am an associate professor in the Department of Curriculum Instruction. I want to provide some much-needed context about a situation that has been developing and escalating over the last 14 months, some of which you may be familiar with, some of you may not. But you may have received at some point in time over the last year what appeared to be a random email addressed from a former student named Rod Moyer, who was originally also scheduled to speak today. In each email and many other subsequent communications, Mr. Moyer has portrayed himself as a social justice warrior, endeavoring to dismantle ongoing racial injustice. Anti-Black racism remains virulent in our society. Racial profiling, disproportionate incarceration of Black and brown men and women, excessive use of force, police brutality. On that, we stridently agree. However, social justice is always locally and contextually situated and demands full understanding of the context. However, that context has until recently largely remained cloaked, which I hope to undo a bit today. So I want to take you back to November 20th, 2019. The day before November 19th, there had been a lot of robocalls, you may recall, of bomb threats to school districts, community colleges, and other universities nationwide, including NIU. With that in mind, I'd like to read just a brief portion of two student emails that were originally written and dated September 8th, 2020, nearly a year after the incident. These emails were written in support of their instructor, Michelle Duffy, in which I've been given permission to share. The first student writes, "During the fall of 2019, after a shooting threat that circulated at NIU, my LTRE 190 class with Michelle Duffy was disrupted by Roderick Moyer. Roderick Moyer stood in the door of our classroom holding a candle, screaming at my instructor about how she was ruining the future of this country. I felt extremely uncomfortable and unsafe. Miss Duffy asked us what we wanted to do, and we told her to call campus security, which Michelle did." And then another email, also dated September 8th, 2020, from a student says, "I was in Michelle Duffy's LTRE class in the fall of 2019. November 20th, 2019 will probably be a day I will never forget. I was a first semester freshman, so everything about college was impressionable to me." The student goes on to describe the class activity they were doing that day and how the door was open, like normal. About halfway through class, a man walks up to our door and just stands there with a lit candle in his hands. He was more or less one more step from being in our classroom. As the class caught notice, we told Duffy, and she promptly and politely walked over and explained that he was in the wrong place and he needed to leave, and she shut the door. After she closed the door, he promptly started to yell. Then he started videoing while yelling. The class Michelle Duffy was teaching was one of our developmental reading courses that serves students from low-performing schools, mostly from Chicago. 95% of the students in those classes are students of color, and mostly Black. The two students who emailed in support of Michelle were themselves Black. The other important point of the context is that I have also been given permission to share is that Michelle Duffy was a survivor of Las Vegas shooting, still recovering from the trauma and PTSD of that shooting. And as we approach the anniversary of our own active shooter, the drama unfolding becomes all the more poignant and complex. No, this is not the simple scenario of a white woman suggesting that mere presence of a Black man is an immediate threat. She had many such young Black men and women in her classroom she was trying to do everything in her power to protect. Rod Moyer submitted a grievance to the university, but his grievance was found to be without merit, and so a hearing was never convened, and these emails submitted in support of Michelle Duffy never read. Despite the grievance being denied and Rod Moyer having graduated, the story and saga continues because administrators of different levels have allowed him to monopolize their attention. So his narrative for the longest time was the only one they heard. But where is the social justice in that? More recently, an email dated January 8th, he circulated an email would include an attachment by me in which I critiqued the way the institution and administration was handling the situation. In his framing, it was called the issue of social justice, quote, crap, rather than the process in which this specific situation was handled and or more accurately mishandled. Then a few days later, January 12th, Rod Moyer uploaded a section to his website that highlighted me, except the picture he uploaded was an image of my niece, Jordan Snyder, who died almost 10 years ago at the age of 18. The second image was of my face, cropped from a photo with my spouse and our two boys at a Troop 33 Boy Scout ski trip. Now, a number of issues that have been raised with this situation are too numerous to address at this point in time, and I hope to do so later. But in conclusion, I want to extend here a formal apology in this public forum, first to Michelle Duffy, and then to Dr. Becky Vaughn. We as faculty left you hanging on a limb alone. Then still an assistant professor, Dr. Lampy, did all she could to let you know that you were supported. But it wasn't enough. It should have come from the department, from the college, from our upper administration, from somewhere. Your efforts to protect your students was not recognized, and for that, I wanted to say I am deeply sorry. Thank you for your time.
I would refer you to my artifact, When the Bully Becomes the Victim. When the Bully Becomes the Victim.